Hey everyone, welcome back to the project of coding Oledium. You remember from the last video we'd started to look at the main control file index.vbs and think about how we were going to build that. Now that file contained, if you recall, it was missing the code by which we would call all the other files that we wanted to call in and use in the project. And what I did was to go through and create all of the files that were on our mind map that we believe we're going to need to use. So we certainly had the idea of a class library and a method library, the idea that there could be an inventory of stuff in the world, that there would be a separate file dedicated to generating the hero, the character we'll play, and what else we got here, again dedicated to help information and background information. So we're just trying to make sure we could go to each of these files and almost guess what the content will be and not just mix everything in. So if we don't find a way to be able to call in remote files, obviously all of the content from these will have to go into this single file, and that's really not maintainable if we're doing a project of reasonable size. And if we're thinking about software automation, again, it's going to be easier to have a control file and then call in the methods, the subs, the classes, and anything else, text, generating output files, call in those from separate files. So we need to be able to fill this code in here that will allow us to call all of these things, and then to be able to have hopefully a fairly sequential set of methods here that we call. Now I had a look around, and VBScript doesn't have natively doesn't have an include statement like this one. My file dot Ruby, for example, Ruby does, and C does. So there are programming languages, scripting languages that can do that, and there's an object, a method to be able to use, but not VBScript. But VBScript can read in files, it's just not done in a very straightforward way. So I was given a link to this webpage on Twitter where it shows you the way that we're going to need to do this, and this page, I won't show you everything, but it has this idea of there's a main file, and then it calls in the procedures. So great, this is the model of what we need. And obviously, I may have said this, but unfortunately just hacking around and reading around like this is often the way to learn and put these projects together. So when we look at this, it's got a lot of stuff that we don't need. But what we can see is there's the creation of a file system object. So a file system object, bingo. This is what we need, because our we want to be calling these files in, and we can see here there's a method of opening a text file and certain parameters being passed to it. So obviously open this procedures document, this procedures VBS, and bring it in for reading. Great. Now this variable here, this object file, which at this point holds this value, i.e. pulling in a file here for reading, then gets this execute command run against it, and we say object file dot read all. Okay, so open it for reading and read everything in. So this looks pretty much like what we need. And we need to be able to call in here our, let's say, our inventory or our class library, and we could probably probably iterate over each of these and pull them all in. There's a lot of other stuff here that we don't need. So then when we look down here, we can see what looks like a very similar bunch of code. So it's only this bit here that is actually of any use, By the way, you'll see here I was reading around what these file system objects were, so what these elements were. So file system object returns a text stream, okay, object in fact, that can be read from or written to. So great, text stream is an object, so there must be a bunch of methods we can call on it. And in fact, here we go. Here's the open text file method. Opens a specified file and returns a text stream. So object open text file, file name, and the I/O mode for reading. And so bingo, now we start to understand what this looks like, what this is about. Open text file, the file, and its I/O mode. Okay, great. So I'll put the links for these in the description, but you get the idea. It's a good thing to just sort of read around these and see what are all these elements that we're about to basically just rip off from this code. Because very often we're not going to be able to just cut and paste this straight into our page. And in fact, what we'll do is start to think about how we need to modify this. In fact, I'm going to get rid of this page because I have another working example of this that I can go on to. So let's try and pull this together a little bit. Now the example had the idea of a function called include, but what we can do is we can use a sub as well. And I had a different play with the functions and the difference between functions and subs. Essentially, subs don't return a value outside of themselves, where functions do. Now what we're doing here then is to use a sub that will do a piece of work, but we don't need an output from it. So I think a sub feels better. And just thinking about the Ruby and C#, I'm going to call this include. I'm going to want to include something in there. Now, as part of scripting, we don't have to be explicit here. We can use another item. We can use another variable. Right. So in VBScript, we also need to declare our variables. So, as we saw in that example, they called it object FSO. Now, I've come to learn that a good convention is to put a letter before your variable so that you know what this is. So we're going to declare a variable using this dimension of FSO, but we'll put the O before it so we know it's an object that we're creating. And we'll also, from that example, need the file, but the file will also be an object, so we'll have that too. So these are declared, but now we need to actually set them and give them a working value. So we want to set our file system object, to equal, and it was create object and a scripting dot file system object, and this is the magic one, isn't it? The file system object that we need. And we also want to set then our object of file to the value of the file system object variable, file system object. But this time we want to open, open the text file, text file, and the open text file I think needed, let's just check this, the file name and the I/O mode, and we want to do it for reading, so the value needs to be 1. So we open the text file, I'm not sure what it's going to be yet. Well, I'll tell you what we'll do. We will just open one of our current files from over here. So we'll open, let's see, AD method dot lib, oh no, God, underscore lib.vbs. Right, so open this file. Does it need one example here? File name. Okay, what I'm looking for is whether we need quotes around it. I'm going to assume we do, otherwise it would look like some kind of variable name to VBScript, I would assume. Okay, so there we are. We've declared our variables here. We've then set a file system object variable to this. We've created an object, a file system object for scripting, and then we've got our file and said on this call the open text file method, which should pull this additional external file for reading. Okay. For reading, but we haven't actually read it, so we need to declare another variable, which is the string, because it returns a text string. So we'll call this string, and it will equal the O file, and we'll call the read_all method on the contents of this file. So we'll say the contents of this file, sorry, the contents of this file, which are now in this variable. On that variable, read all of them. Read it all. Get it in. And then looking at the documents, I noticed there was another method called oFileClose. So though we've opened this for reading, we've read it in, well, now we'll close it. Right. The thing I got caught out with here was the idea that I thought that was done, but I hadn't made it available to my program, because what we needed to do was execute it. So we'll do that. str. So we execute on that global. Execute global on that content of that file. And because we've got a sub, we need to end the sub, and that should be our subroutine for calling in the add method libs file. Now include doesn't have anything in it, but we've created a sub, and I believe it needs something. There's an easy way to do this, so we'll save this down and we'll run it by hitting F5. Line 17. Let's have a look. We can view line numbers. Right, what doesn't it like about that? Expected end of statement. Actually, you know what I've just realised I've just done here? We've created the sub. Let me just get rid of all these in case this is causing some confusion. We'll come back to these later. Right, we've created a sub. We haven't called it yet. Expected end. Interesting. Okay. Hang on. I've declared a variable here and immediately tried to assign it a value. I don't think that's allowed. So we've got the variable declared, and then we will need to say, hey, it should contain that. Okay, I'm hitting F5 here and nothing's happening. So that's probably a good sign. Okay, so declare the variable and then actually say, hey, assign it a value now. We can't assign it a value before declaring, I guess. There must be something quirky there. Right. So that's good. That, to me, looks like what we need to do if I've been practicing this enough. Now, what we've got to do is come back down here and call in the actual file. So let's see. Add method lib.vbs. Now I'm not sure if this is working already, so what we can do, we can just add here a message box. Hello. Save that one down, let's see if that works. Oops. Hello. Okay, so we've got a message box there. That's how you do a message box. There's more to it than that, but that's straightforward. So if I run here and it pulls in this file, I should see that message box, right? Ah, hang on. I need to call my subroutine. Ooh, nice. Line 14. Oh, hang on. Syntax error. Create object. Okay. Line 15. File not found. Interesting. Okay. There's something wrong here. This needs something in it, doesn't it? Let's just have a look back here. What is the problem? Oh, sub. I'm looking in completely the wrong place here, aren't I? Because this doesn't tell me what subs should do. Right. I'm gonna just change this. Because I think we need to have something else, something slightly different here. Just thinking back to my JavaScript days, I think we need to have this as a... So we need to call in your file, and here we call in the file, right? So we'd include, right, but now down here we need to include, in fact, as we're doing this, we will just include, what do we say, the method, yeah, method lib. Okay, so we'll uncheck that, and we'll change this now to include, because we need to call the sub above, and we'll need to have this. So let's save that. File not found again. AD method underscore lib. I call in the file. Okay. So it's a little bit tricky about, I'm not sure what's going wrong here. I'll read all, we've got a file close, which is fair enough. Execute global, which is fair enough. So we declare these, we declare them, we set OFSO. Right. Create object, set up for us, create object. I think that's fine. File OFSO. To the file, we open the text file. Right. We end after all of those runs. Okay. and it's sat in the same directory, so that should work. Add method lib dot VBS. The joy of programming. I'm just going to do a little tweak here, just to see if this makes a difference. Let's move these up. I'm not sure this should make any difference, except to look a little bit tidier. But code can be quirky. Line 12, character 14. Nope, completely stuck. I'm going to have to have a look at this and come back.